Hello and welcome to the 905er podcast. This week we've got a 905 roundup, an old school one with Joel and I, or Joel and me. I never know which one it is. Well, I do if I think about it, but anyway. Uh, um, uh, and well, you know, with a 905er, so we try not to always talk about Toronto stuff, but this definitely affects the 905. Um, and it's Doug Ford. And I know, Joel, what is it? Doug Ford is an ass or something? I can't remember what the story was.
Well, he is, but basically, comes out here to Hamilton, so it is a Hamilton story. But he comes out here to and somebody asked. We had a reporter ask him at one of his press conferences about the homeless encampments that we're seeing popping up in Hamilton as well as other cities across the 905. And we've talked about the need for affordable housing. We've talked about the need for socialized housing to help alleviate that problem. Tiny shelters to get people back into the social pipeline. And apparently, we've all been wrong because according to Doug Ford, the problem is these people are lazy and they need to get off their quote ASS, go get a job application and get to work. And rightfully so. I think a lot of people were just outraged and furious at this comment because it's that tired old conservative trope of if you're homeless, it's because you want to be that way. You're lazy and you don't know how to you have a poor work ethic. But it also shows I think it shows a greater concern of the Premier of Ontario does not know the causes of the problems that we're seeing. He's just that out of touch. Is that homeless encampments aren't popping up because all of a sudden we've had an influx of just laziness that all of a sudden all these people are just fuck it, I don't want to do this, I'm done. It's because Doug Ford's policies have caused this. These people are trying to work, and they're most often than not uh, they're paying rent, and because Doug Ford removed rent controls and isn't building more affordable rental accommodations. Surprise, surprise, these people have found that their landlords have jacked up rent and or run evict them or whatever and forced them out, and wages have not kept up with the status quo. They are forced on the street. They have jobs, they're working, they're trying to make ends meet, but they can't because nobody's looking out for these people. And this is just heartless, cruel, and just quite frankly, so out of touch with what the problems facing Ontario are. I mean, the logistics of even if you are unemployed and homeless, to say just go get a job is so dehumanizingly cruel. Because here's my question, Doug, and to any other conservative minded, right wing minded individual who thinks the same way that these people are lazy, they just need a job. Why don't you go get what would you hire one of these people if they walked up to you and said, "Hey, I've seen the light. I want a job. Can you put me to work? I'll bust tables. I will sort the mail in your copy room. I'll be your gopher. I'll be your whipping boy. Just give me a job and you can pay me minimum wage." Would you hire them right after is it, that they're dirty off the street, unkempt, wearing clothes from last year that they haven't been able to change? Would you hire them? No, because they don't have a home or a place to go clean up or to get themselves sorted out. Not let alone the fact that even on that job application, Doug, you want to fill out, you need an address. You need a phone number for these people to call you back at. And if you're just by the nature of being homeless, you do not have these luxuries to stay in touch. It was just so cruelly out of touch with what's going on in Ontario that rightfully so, he should be called out for these comments and this attitude towards the social problems that we're seeing pop up across the province.
And unfortunately, it plays to his base, right? Um, I'm too old for this. Like I'm sick. I've heard this my whole life. My earliest memories of politics are of basically Margaret Thatcher, and I've said this a number of times, so apologies for repeating myself. Margaret Thatcher getting elected in 1979, and the 80s being all about blame people for being lazy, get on your bike. There was get on your bike was a famous statement from a guy called Norman Tebbit, who was had all the charm of a sewer. One of the most unpleasant people. Um, it's like it's funny, isn't it, that people get awfully lazy whenever conservative governments get elected.
Right.
Now you look at those Scandinavian countries with good social safety nets and all that stuff, and they have much lower levels of homelessness. I'm not saying they're perfect, but much lower. And suddenly everybody gets a dose of the I can't be bothered when there's a conservative government. Now, why could that be? I wonder. I wonder. But no, Doug Ford isn't saying these statements to us. He's saying it to validate the prejudices of the people he wants to vote for him. So good on you,
Mhm.
Doug. You're doing what you have to do, I guess. I don't know how you sleep at night.
Well, apparently my betting in a very comfy 12 family cottage up in Muskoka, from what we understand. But I guess that's just it. Like this, we're going to talk about lazy here. I mean, let's look at Doug Ford's career. He is a nepo baby. He did not build anything from scratch. He got a company handed to him by his father, who did all the legwork, which seems to be a running theme amongst the wealthy in our society, is that they inherit the work that was done before them. They inherit it. And then Doug Ford, apparently, from what we understand from his sister-in-law, drove the company into the ground. Didn't really do anything. He didn't grow it. He didn't expand it. He didn't build on it. But he lived off the proceeds of dad's hard work for a good while, and then went into politics because he's, despite all those lazy people in government, he has no problem trying to get that job. Him,
We know
him.
the only time he's ever shown any entrepreneurial ability is when he was a drug dealer.
Well, that's just it. He
Uh,
he he got his claim as being a drug dealer in Etobicoke. Him and his brother Rob, and then Rob gets elected mayor, bring a scandal and infamy to the city of Toronto. The city of Toronto strips him of his powers, and he's been on a vindictive street ever since. To the city of Toronto, he failed at running for mayor, and then got the mayor of got to become premier because he kicked Patrick Brand out with a pseudo sex scandal that never went anywhere. But he gets booted out of there, runs on how awful Kathleen Wynne is as a premier and how she's run the province into the ground, then gets elected. And what does he do? Undoes everything that Kathleen Wynne does, and then over the last 8 years has been slowly introducing those acts or those policies back uh, into the province quietly but assuredly. Um, any of the biggest policy things that he's been trying to do, trying to get housing built, has not. We have the lowest housing starts in the country, folks. We are the biggest province, the wealthiest province in the country, yet we cannot get housing built for the life of us under Doug Ford. Um, he is responsible for the stripping of our healthcare system, the increased privatization, which is, we're spending billions of dollars to private companies to staff our hospitals, yet we aren't seeing a reduction in wait times. We aren't seeing an increase in services. It's a waste of money. We are seeing um, just anything he's tried to do. I mean, license plates. Remember that first fiasco? That was a joke. Just everything that this man has tried to do has been a failure. And for him to say to people who have been hit the hardest by life because of his policies, I am going to put this on him because we didn't have this housing problem until he came onto the picture. And yes, I know the problems were existing long before he came in the picture, but you're on the clock now. It's your job to fix it. And I'm sorry, but you're not doing it. And these people are bearing the brunt of it. And he's going to come in and say it's their lazy responsibility. I mean, this is what conservatives do all the time. They see the problem, and for whatever reason, who caused it, the solution is always, well, it's not us who's the problem, it's them. And them is you, folks. Eventually, it becomes you. You're too lazy, you're too woke, you're too whatever, and it's your fault that the bad things are happening to you. It's not the fact that Doug Ford wants to, every chance he gets, hands money to his billionaire buddies at the expense of you. And now we have people on the streets, can't afford rent, can't afford a mortgage, can't afford the jobs that are paying them pocket change.
And I just can't believe that the opposition can't mount a better
Oh my God, yes.
fight against this. I know we're repeating ourselves, listeners, gentle listeners. We sympathize you. We hate the fact that we're just like going over this again. Like, what has he said this week? Why this man's gonna have an election? Was it next year?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I mean, if we have an early election, certainly. Um, all the evidence suggests he's going to win at a walk. All the evidence suggests Pierre Poilievre is going to win at a walk. What is wrong with this province? What is wrong with this country? What is wrong with the opposition parties, or in the case of the federal government, the actual government, that they can't mount a better,
Yeah. Well,
mount a better, something better against this.
This week has been astounding for Doug Ford blunder screw ups. Like he's just been, every time he steps to the microphone, I'm looking at it saying, oh my gosh, he's just taunting the opposition with blunder and bad policy and bad ideas for the province, or just misjudging the crisis. And it's Merritt Stiles and Bonnie Crombie are not stepping up to the microphone and saying this is outrageous. I mean, when Doug Ford dropped his "get off your ASS" comment to to the press, and that was what was in the news cycle, I said, well, okay, what's Bonnie Crombie going to say? This has got to be a big set. And no, she had, well, let's talk about healthcare. Let's talk about funding. And it's like, yeah, that's a priority, but my God, like, go where the puck is. Not you. It was astounding to me, just like the incompetency here. And Mary Styles, I haven't seen anything from her on this "get off your ASS" comment. Like it's just.
She's quoted in the piece by Rob Ferguson in the Star. I was looking at, and she has the usual, says this is a heartless comment. Fine, I mean, I guess, but I don't know. Why can they not land a punch on this man? I don't get it.
It's because they're
as far as Bonnie Crombie goes, she doesn't want to upset those voters either. But she's clearly chosen her route, which is to be Doug Ford. Yeah. But somehow a better. I don't even see what kind of better form of Doug Ford she is. She's just another incompetent bozo. I'm sorry. She's, I cannot. I thought that it was a mistake when the Liberals chose Del Duca. This is a worse mistake. They're not going in the right direction. They're going.
Well, it's clear. It's clear they are not winning over Ontarians, because here. Okay, here's the next story that we wanted to talk about was, and against Doug Ford, and again, all in 1 week, these comments have been coming, and we have not, and it's just astounding. And this directly impacts the 905. I think he thinks it's Toronto centric, but it does impact the 905. And of course, we're talking about the new Ontario Great Tunnel build. I mean, this is the solution to the 401 traffic. Is he's going to build I think the last estimate I heard is 100 to 120 billion. That's billion with a B, tunnel underneath the 401 from Brampton to Scarborough. And we're just going to divert traffic underneath that, and that will alleviate traffic on the 401. 401 right now, I think, is a 16-lane wide highway at its busiest. And okay, there's so many things wrong with this plan that I'm astounded by. One, $100 billion to build this thing. We know that in Boston, they try to do the same thing. And that was a far shorter tunnel. That was just the width of Boston, and a smaller length of space. And that ended up going drastically over budget by the billions as well, long past any due deadline that they set for this project. They just kept digging it out for like, I think it was like 20 or 30 years. They were digging this tunnel out, long past the deadline, long over budget. They finally got it done, I think last year or the year before. And it's like, yeah, you've solved the problem to the 1980s traffic congestion in Boston in the 2020s. Congratulations there. That's what this is going to be. I mean, there's no way you're going to keep the timeline of, and this would, for the record, this would be the longest tunnel, I think, in the world. Longest consecutive tunnel underneath the world.
It's in some ways, I hope they build it because it'd be a massive noose around Doug Ford's neck. However, I don't want them to build it because it's a colossal waste of money. If you listen to this podcast, you already know this. Putting more lanes onto highways doesn't work. It's been proven. This is not up for debate. It's been proven. All you create is induced demand. It's like if you put a pipe and you put water in a pipe, the pipe will, it will fill up. If you provide capacity, the capacity will grow to fill that capacity, like the level of usage. We're in a climate emergency. We're in a climate crisis. We already live in what should be one of the most beautiful provinces in the world. But I feel that, if we look at the 905, if we look at Toronto, if we look at urban development in Ontario, we've created one of the most abysmally ugly, unpleasant, polluted residential areas in the world. We've done everything wrong, and we're going to double down on that and waste however many billions of dollars.
Well, here's
just creating more of a hellscape, frankly, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, here's my thoughts on the question on the matter. Was I thought the 413 was supposed to alleviate this problem, wasn't it? The 413 picks up in Milton on the 401, and it was going to take people up to the 400, up by King and just north of Vaughan area. And I thought that's what this was supposed to do. This was supposed to alleviate traffic on the 401 and get people home easier and all that. We're like, nobody was asking for this tunnel to nowhere. And you're right. Like, it's just such a waste of money. I've seen comments online of, what if we took that $100 billion and went and bought back the 407 and rejig the fees on that so that we could divert traffic, the truck traffic that travels the 401 onto the 407 to skirt around as it was intended to do, keep rates somewhat sane to pay down the bill for the 407, but put it back into public hands and just pay it down. Wouldn't that be a better use of that $100 billion? Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. My question is also, if you're going to divert $100 billion into this highway project, why not build housing for all those homeless people that you need to get off their ASS sitting in Hamilton, Oakville, Mississauga, and Toronto, and all over the province? Wouldn't that make more sense to put that money there?
I mean, it's like this government is willing to invest. It's willing to invest in infrastructure. It's willing to invest in, it thinks, jobs. So for God's sake, invest in something. Coming back to the homeless thing, I don't think it's any great secret. A high percentage of people who are homeless are dealing with mental health challenges, other health challenges that are not treated for whatever reason. So we pay for that, our failure to treat people properly, to have a decent health care in homelessness, in people who can't hold down jobs because they have untreated addictions or untreated mental health problems, and I don't want to lump mental health and addiction together, but we know that by the time people live on the streets, there are probably multiple issues at work. Laziness being none of them. It's like, well, that's just... no one chooses. Again, like, who chooses to do that? Who chooses to live in the fucking cold in Canada?
Right.
Like, seriously, try it for a week, you moron. I know you couldn't get far enough away from a burger to bloody survive the week, but I mean, seriously, you cretin, just please try it for a week and tell me that people choose to do that.
It is the I'm astounded at this government, just the sheer lack of foresight and accountability. It's not even they're trying to hide it anymore. I saw on Twitter, give credit to TO resident who brought this up on one of his posts, that the companies that would be involved most likely in the construction of this monstrosity underneath the 401 are the same companies that are owned by like Silvio de Gasperis, who is also, as faithful listeners of this podcast and plugged into the news of the day, would also, name should sound familiar, as that was the family that owns a lot of the development companies that bought land around the Greenbelt and around the proposed 413, who would be raking in hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars on the valuation of the project. Now the Greenbelt, clearly that came in, that canceled out because the good reporting of people at the Narwhal and Trillium, who have uncovered that this wasn't that there was a lot of sketchiness happening in money shifting hands, it seemed, over this. But you have to ask the question, okay, so why double down on this project that nobody asked for? Nobody thinks this is going to solve a thing. And the only people who are saying this is a good thing are construction firms, the developing firms on that. And the other one is what we've seen is the unions coming to defend this because, yeah, it's going to, I mean, they'll be being paid hundreds of dollars an hour to just keep digging a hole for the next 10, 15 years. Like who?
Of course, they're going to support it. I mean, unfortunately, we have an unholy alliance in this province between the government, developers, and unions, and certain unions. I don't want to, I am a pro-union person, and I will go to my dying day being a pro-union person. They are necessary, and when they work correctly, they are fantastic. However, in this situation, the unions are part of the profit-making process. That, I mean, they are the unions that are associated with development in this province, and we're talking about the UNIA, the Carpenters Union, these are two that spring to mind, are, making large amounts of money, not just for their members, but for themselves from the development and from the building. That, in terms of being subsidy junkies, let's just point out, when you're talking about massive government spending like this, when we talk about, well, the government mustn't subsidize this and mustn't subsidize that, the development industry through road building and through and basically I'm including certainly Leuna in the development industry because they are a major developer in this province. They are the biggest subsidy junkies out there in terms of getting massive checks to build stuff that we don't actually bloody want or need. That doesn't solve any problems. I mean, it's just it's jobs for the boys. It's
well, that's just what this is. It's just you're going to be paying. I mean, yeah, you show up to the site and you just dig another kilometer of road out. Great, wonderful. The logistics of, the highway, coming back to the highway bit, is ridiculous because you think about it. Okay, we're going to dig the width of North Toronto. Like think of the Brampton to Scarborough. What does that look like, right? As you're digging out this tunnel, the hundreds of kilometers of tunnel that you're digging out there. Where does the soil go? What is that like? What does that look like? We're just going to see even worse construction as dump trucks just yank out truckloads of soil and dirt and limestone and whatnot. I don't mean, the other question I have is how deep down do you have to go? Because there's infrastructure going underneath the 401, right? You have sewerways, you have subway systems in some cases, and this kind of thing. And it's just like, what does that like? Think about this, people. How complex is this going to be? And it's for 10, 15 years, we're just going to see even worse traffic on the 401. So that what? Like, honestly, what? Because I don't see
Well,
this solving a damn thing for
I mean, I
anyone
guess
in the 905.
people say that, call these sort of major roads traffic sewers. Well, I guess you're literally turning it into a traffic sewer. I mean, if you've ever driven in a really long tunnel, it's a really unpleasant experience.
Oh, that's just it. Like,
with pollution, with just being in a long, straight, dark tube for any length of time. I recently went through a really long one, funnily enough. I went on vacation to Colombia, and if you're going from Medellin to the airport, they had to build a really huge tunnel through the mountain to sort of speed up the road from the city to the airport. Very mountainous region, and it was certainly very interesting. It was like, my God, this is a long tunnel. I mean, that would be, I don't know, 10% of what we're talking here. If we're talking about Brampton to where were they talking? Brampton to Scarborough.
yeah.
Uh, it's it's not realistic. It's stupid. It's a waste of money. It wouldn't solve a damn thing in terms of getting around this province. Um, you know, we now have worse traffic, worse roads than Los Angeles. That means, that's not something to be proud of. When people talk about Los Angeles, they don't talk about a city that has made the right decisions in its major transit and transportation choices. We've done it worse, and it's like, and we're just going to double down on that.
I am
I don't know.
astounded.
People in this province need to, and I'm not talking about the politicians. We, the electorate, the people, need to wake up, stop being so stupid.
Well,
You're already living in somewhere that has made so many bad decisions. We've got to make a few good ones.
well, what just astounds me is how we do not. We need to get out and travel more around the world and see how people get around and outside of North America, because you're right. Like, what astounds me is the idea of, well, we just need another highway and that's going to solve it all. And it's like, we've always been building out more highways. We find a roadway doesn't, it gets filled up. We have more cars on it. Oh, what's the solution? Oh, we just need another highway, or we need to expand the lanes on this highway. And the fact is, we have hit the wall. Like, we just don't. The 401 doesn't have anywhere else to expand to. We are right up against the wall on it. And so the idea of, well, we have to dig underneath. It's ridiculous, and it's a question we need to look at. I am not anti-car. Cars are great, wonderful inventions. I love them. I love driving them. But let's be honest, the idea of driving in downtown anywhere in the 905 is really unappealing for a lot of people, because we've filled up their roadways with cars. Cars are just everywhere. And we just may say, what do we preserve a car for? That one-off personal errand we need to do around town, great. Or better yet, when we are traveling outside the 905 across the province or across the country, is really what we need to look at, what the car is useful for. Other than that, we need to start looking at public transit to get us around more efficiently, quicker, faster, cheaply, costly, or better yet, embrace the notion of working from home to get people off the street as much as possible. We need to embrace some change in this province, and we are not. And I find, here's the thing: maybe people are, but they also want to know, like, what is the plan here? Is it going to cost us some more? Yeah, probably. But I'll tell you this much: if we're going to be spending $115 billion, why not give that money to the municipalities in the 905? Say, let's fix transit. Let's make sure buses are connected to each other and that they are efficient to get around our communities, to get us to those key points of interest within our cities and our municipalities, cheaply, efficiently. I mean, God, I have no problem spending $115 billion on a project. I really don't. But man, oh man, make sure that project is smart and that it is going to last the test of time. Because we build this tunnel. Here's my thing. My fear of using that tunnel is this: you'd say, I'm going to go into the tunnel, go underneath, and boom, you're stuck in traffic. You're stuck in the Highway 905 traffic underground. Can you imagine being stuck in the 40 top side 401 traffic, but now you're in a tube under, however many kilometers underground, and God forbid, a blackout happens.
Well, and yeah, tunnels are dangerous when accidents happen.
Yes.
You have an oil tanker down there. Well, I suspect oil tankers wouldn't be allowed to go down there, but the risk of fire, you've just created a chimney. There was that horrendous accident in Switzerland a few years ago, in one of the longer tunnels there, where there was a major fire, and I can't remember how many people died, but a lot, because it's you can't put a helicopter in there.
No.
So if it's jammed up with traffic, how are you gonna, so we haven't managed to build a single meter of subway track anytime recently, despite all the talk about subways. Remember who said that? No subway's been built. Toronto has one of the, for a city of its size, it has a very deficient subway system. And there are people who are for more subways, there are people who are against. I don't particularly care. I do know is, like, most cities of Toronto size have a better subway system than Toronto has. We can't seem to build it. So how the hell are we going to build a massive tube for cars? I don't know.
It's just
so stupid. I mean, it should be an embarrassment. The man should be a laughing stock for even suggesting it. But here we are.
The mismanagement of public funds, though, should be enough to disqualify. Like, why is it that McGuinty and Wynne are the worst things that ever happened to Ontario because they mismanaged the public coffers with gas plant scandals and all that nonsense? And oh my gosh, it was so bad. Yet we're willing to back Doug Ford on $100 billion tunnel that is going to produce squat to us, cost us huge, bankrupt our ability to do anything creative in the future, because we're going to be constantly paying off this tunnel for my grandchildren's generation. And if we have that money to spend, why wouldn't we spend it on infinitely more things? Like, a fraction of that is just going to be the cost to build housing, subsidized housing for homeless people, to invest in our healthcare system, to invest in our schools, to hell, if we have that much money, put in a UBI, give money back to people in a tax cut, to the lowest income, just to boost the economy. Like,
those kinds of sums will be transformative for so many areas of government.
Oh my God, we could do so much more with this than just build a tunnel so the Gasparis family can make a couple more $100 million for the next few years, and make sure that they have their homes in Florida paid off by this time next year. This is ridiculous, the waste here of just that it's even mentioned, and the fact that we don't have anyone clamoring to say, no, Doug Ford needs to go. This is infinitely worse spending than anything McGuinty or Wynne might have bungled. I'm not saying that they were perfect. I'm not saying they didn't make bad decisions. They did. They're humans. And yes, when you make a bad decision, you get called out on it, and you should be turfed out of office. I get that.
And what did the Liberals, let's and I'm not going to say they're perfect either. There's all kinds of things I wish they'd done that they didn't do. But look at what is it that they received the greatest. People would think they bankrupted the province. Well, we're in far more debt now. This terrible thing with the gas plants. With the gas plant issue, there was even if you take the opposition's numbers, which were bullshit, by the way, but anyway, if you take the opposition's numbers, it was $1 billion. I'll put $1 billion up against however many billion we're talking about for a stupid road that we don't need. The second road we don't need. $1 billion, we're talking about pocket change, frankly, and it wasn't $1 billion anyway, because of the way that they calculated was a lot of horseshit. But what do we do? Do we have, on the day that they left office, was a power system, a power grid that was transformatively better than it was than when they came into office, because they had invested a lot of money in the power grid. And people say, oh, well, the bills are good, the price has gone up, the power. Well, yeah, because you invested a lot of money in it, so you're going to have to pay for that investment that hadn't been done over the previous 2 or 3 decades. But you're still paying less than New York. You're still paying less than
But
Illinois. You're still
here's the
paying
thing.
less than
Doug
California.
Doug Ford got elected. A couple things on that. Doug Ford got elected on bringing down your energy bill. Under his tenure, your energy bill has gone up. We have rolling blackout or brownouts happening that we didn't have underneath McGuinty and Wynne. And conveniently enough, surprise, surprise, Doug Ford has realized, oh, we need to bring in basically the Green Energy Act back to put up windmills and solar farms around the province to augment our energy production, because he put the kibosh on that for 6 years, and now we have to play catch up. I mean, he says, "Oh, we're going to give municipalities a chance to back out." The problem is there's only a few municipalities that are actually eligible for wind farms. Just the wind blows only in certain parts of the province, folks. Eventually, where either this doesn't get done, or the Ford government has to go to war with certain municipalities to say we do need to build these farms here. That's going to be interesting take on that. I find it hypocritical that the Ford government, despite saying the Wynne government was so bad, is now basically bringing back everything that the Wynne government introduced. Furthermore, I want to end off on that note, again, bring this full circle to the homelessness issue, and Doug Ford saying, hey, get off your ASS and go apply for a job. This government, according to Martin Reg-Cohen and the Toronto Star, is one of the worst job creators in Ontario history. They have performed, and it's demonstrably provable, they are producing less jobs than when Kathleen Wynne was premier. Doug Ford has a worse job creation record than Kathleen Wynne. I mean, this is a government that is infinitely incompetent at its even what it's promising to do, let alone any grand vision for the province. I mean, it's all talk, as they say out in Alberta. It was all sizzle, no steak. It's this basically the Doug Ford government. Yet it's costing us billions of dollars because the things that we need, housing, healthcare, education, are not being met. They're not being addressed. We are the lagger in new housing builds. We are a lagger in job creation. We are a lagger in debt management for this government. It is maybe not debt management. There was the debt to GDP ratio is what we should be looking at. I don't think this government has a good management on that file. But again, we're apparently we're not even balancing the budget though. Yet 6 years later, we have nothing to show for it. I don't know what we can point to say that was worth it.
Yeah, I don't think they're even pretending to give a shit about that anymore.
No,
I mean,
but it's something to say. Oh,
stuff,
but here's the thing. To bring back to your point, we just named off all this record, and yet Bonnie Crombie and Merritt Stiles cannot lay any of that to the Ontario people. I'm kind of thinking they need to get out of their tour buses, their tour vans, and go down to some of those encampments and talk to people and hear what people have to say. Because clearly they're not in touch with what Ontario needs. I don't buy that people are that keen on Doug Ford for another third majority term, but they're also not keen on Bonnie Crombie or Merritt Stiles. That's the idea of the premiership of the Ontario is not well, I'm going to wait for my turn, or I'm going to wait until Justin Trudeau is voted out, and then everybody's going to want the Liberals in. That's not how this works, people. You got to fight for it. You got to want it. And you got to make an argument for it. And simply saying, wait until the election when we present our platform, then people are going to be wowed, does not count anymore. What is your vision? What is the solution that you want to present? And fight for it every day that you get.
Yeah. Well, we should probably leave it there. I mean, we made a point, but yeah, I don't see how in the current climate, the guy with the most charisma wins. And our opposition has two people with, as far as I've seen, charisma bypasses. And I know that's very shallow, and that shouldn't be about that. But if you look at, even if you look at the current U.S. election, putting someone in who has a bit of a charisma, who looks good on camera, has transformed the election. Now, and who is younger. I mean, it's all pretty superficial stuff, but it has transformed the U.S. election on its head. the opposition parties need to find someone who can grab screen time, who can grab headlines, who can, who doesn't put us to sleep when we see them come onto the screen or when they say whatever the hell they say on Twitter. Especially when you're up against, whatever you say about Doug Ford, he knows how to grab a headline.
I don't even think it's
whatever you say about,
I don't think it's necessarily that. It's you need to show that you care about people and speak about what matters to people. People are scared. They're scared that their job's not going to be there because automation will take it away, or that they're not going to get a wage increase. But the landlord's going to jack up the rent a couple $100, and that might force them out, or they're going to be rent evicted, or they're going to go to take the paycheck and they're going to go down to Loblaws and say, all right, time to buy groceries for the family, and realize they can't buy what they used to before. These are the real fears of people. And that's what I'm not hearing from Merritt Stiles or Bonnie Crombie. I don't hear them marrying back the fears of people saying, what if I can't make ends meet next month? What if things just aren't going to work out? And yes, talking about healthcare and talking about not using the notwithstanding clause. Yes, that's important, and we all know that, but that's not what's keeping people up at night these days. And you need to realize that you stop being the policy wonk and start talking to people, start hearing their concerns and reflecting it back. And like, there's a reason why Pierre Poilievre is so popular. I can't stand the guy. I think he's not going to solve this damn problem, but you know what? He is talking to the people's real, true fears. And my God, Bonnie, Merritt, take a page and figure it out. Because quite frankly, I think Pierre Poilievre has the right target. He knows what's scaring people. People are scared for their livelihoods these days. His solutions aren't going to matter at all to people, but he's presenting a solution and people are gravitating towards it. You need to do the same, and you're not. You're trying to win a policy debate in Queen's Park, and it's nobody gives a crap. They're too worried about, are they going to be able to stay in their apartment or their house next month? And are they going to be able to send their kids to school with a full belly the next morning? Wake up.
Let's draw it to a close there. Thanks, everybody. We will be back next week with more from the 905er. Cheers for now. Bye.